The warm spring sun poured softly over the quiet suburban neighborhood, casting long shadows from the towering oaks lining the streets. In the small backyard of a modest brick house, 18-month-old Liam was already on the move. His chubby little hands were busy exploring everything within reach. A pile of sticks, a cracked flower pot, and now, the most intriguing thing of all, a heap of dusty cement rubble piled high where the old garden shed had once stood. The shed had been knocked down weeks ago, but the mess remained. Heavy chunks of grey cement, twisted metal rods, and broken, wooden planks left in an awkward mound. To most it was nothing more than a dangerous nuisance, but to Liam it was a treasure trove of discovery. His tiny fingers poked into a crack between two heavy slabs. He grunted with delight, excited by the strange textures beneath his touch. His mother, Emma, was just a few steps away, folding clothes on the porch. She kept an eye on him, but trusted he was safe enough to explore. Suddenly, something caught Liam's attention, a faint, muffled sound like a small cry, barely audible beneath the birdsong and distant traffic. Liam stopped, his bright blue eyes wide with wonder. He babbled and pointed at the rubble, his little voice rising in curious urgency. Emma looked up, puzzled. "What is it, baby?" she called softly. But Liam didn't answer with words. Instead, he crawled closer, his palms scraping against the rough cement as he leaned in. Then, again, a quiet whimper. Emma's heart skipped. She dropped the laundry basket and hurried to Liam's side. The sound was unmistakable now, soft barking, desperate and scared. It seemed to come from underneath the heavy rubble. "Liam, stay back," Emma warned gently, but the toddler was already entranced, crawling toward the edge of the debris. He reached a small gap between two broken concrete blocks and peered inside. The sight made Emma's blood run cold. Just beyond the shadows of the rubble, she saw the flicker of a dark nose twitching, a pair of pleading eyes reflecting the sunlight. Without thinking, Emma dropped to her knees, wrapping an arm protectively around Liam. "Oh my God," she whispered, her voice shaking. "There's an animal down there." Neighbors, drawn by the sudden noise, began to appear over the fence. "What's going on?" one woman asked, stepping closer. Emma, voice thick with urgency, explained, "I think there are dogs trapped under this cement pile." The neighbors exchanged worried looks. Soon phones appeared, emergency numbers were dialed, and within minutes a small group of animal rescue volunteers arrived with tools and flashlights. Meanwhile, Liam, the tiny baby who had started it all, sat at the edge of the rubble, staring intently into the dark gap where the animals were trapped. His little face was a mix of curiosity and concern, and whenever he heard a bark or whimper, he let out a high-pitched giggle, as if he somehow understood the creatures beneath and was cheering them on. Emma watched him, her chest tight with emotion. How could such a small child sense something so desperate and dangerous? His innocent spirit was the spark lighting hope in a dark moment. The rescue team moved quickly but carefully, lifting slabs of cement one by one. The crowd held their breath as the sounds grew louder, first a bark, then a shaky whimper. Finally, through the shifting dust and rubble, the rescuers glimpsed a battered German shepherd's head, caked with dirt but alive, blinking slowly in the sunlight. Tears welled in Emma's eyes as Liam reached out his tiny hand, brushing the dog's ear gently. The baby's giggle burst forth again, bright and full of joy. The rescue had just begun. Emma's heart pounded like a drum as the rescue team carefully lifted away the heavy cement slabs one by one. The dust hung thick in the air, making everyone cough and squint, but no one dared to stop. The soft, pitiful barking and whining coming from beneath the rubble pushed the rescuers onward. In the midst of the chaos, little Liam sat cross-legged on the dirt, his wide eyes locked on the small gap where the dogs were trapped. His tiny voice broke the tense silence, a high-pitched cry that caught everyone's attention. "Dogs! Dogs!" he babbled excitedly, pointing toward the rubble with urgent insistence. Emma smiled through her tears. Despite his young age, Liam's pure and instinctive empathy was undeniable. It was his curiosity that had uncovered the secret beneath the concrete, and now it was his voice that fueled the determination to save what lay trapped beneath. The neighbors, many of whom had come out to see what was happening, were now gathered in a tight circle, offering help and encouragement. Phones were out, recording the unfolding rescue, while others called for additional assistance. Emma's neighbor, Mr. Harris, a retired firefighter, knelt beside her and said quietly, "That baby's got a heart bigger than this whole neighborhood." Minutes stretched painfully as the rescue team continued their slow, methodical work. The slabs were heavy, jagged, and precariously balanced. One wrong move could cause a collapse, endangering both rescuers and the trapped animals. Sweat dripped down the faces of those digging, mixing with the dust and tears. Then, after what felt like an eternity, a faint, shaking whimper broke through. The silence, a sound so fragile that it could have been mistaken for the wind. Emma's breath caught, and she looked down to find Liam reaching toward her, his tiny hands trembling. The baby's eyes were filled with a mixture of wonder and fear, his body stiff with anticipation. Suddenly, one of the rescuers shouted, "I see it!" Fingers trembling, he carefully brushed away a layer of dust to reveal the battered face of a German shepherd, barely visible but alive. The dog's deep, expressive eyes blinked slowly, filled with exhaustion and relief. A collective gasp swept through the crowd. Tears ran freely down Emma's cheeks as she scooped Liam into her arms, whispering soothing words she barely believed herself. "We're going to get them out, baby. We're going to save them." But the rescue was far from over. Just a few feet away, beneath an even larger slab of cement, faint noises continued, the unmistakable sounds of two more dogs, whimpering and scratching desperately for freedom. Emma's heart clenched tightly. She looked down at Liam, who now softly cooed, "More dogs, more dogs." The rescuers redoubled their efforts, carefully moving the debris. The crowd grew, drawn by the raw emotion of the moment and the incredible courage of a tiny child, whose cries had lit a fire under the whole neighborhood. Neighbors took turns holding Liam as the work became grueling and slow. Every time the baby's sharp eyes caught movement, a fresh wave of hope rippled through the crowd. Hours passed and the sun climbed higher, beating down mercilessly on the gathered crowd. Yet no one moved away. The rescue had become a community mission, united by the bond of compassion ignited by a single toddler's discovery. Emma sat on the ground, holding Liam close, watching as the rescuers made slow but steady progress. Liam's laughter broke out intermittently, a sweet sound that floated over the somber scene, a reminder of innocence amid struggle. Suddenly, a shout came from the other side of the rubble. Another dog. The second German shepherd was found, equally exhausted, but alive, its paws trembling as it clung to hope. The crowd erupted in cheers, tears streaming down faces young and old. Liam clapped his hands, giggling wildly. He reached out a hand to touch the rescued dog, who responded with a gentle lick on his tiny fingers. Emma's chest swelled with pride and relief. In that moment, she realized something profound. This baby, with his boundless curiosity and pure heart, had done more than discover trapped animals. He had brought a whole community together, sparking a rescue fueled by hope and love. But there was still one dog left, buried deeper, fighting for life beneath the weight of concrete and silence. The afternoon sun cast long golden rays over the backyard as the rescue team, sweat pouring down their faces, worked tirelessly to free the final two dogs buried beneath the crushing weight of cement and debris. The air was thick with dust, sweat and a nervous tension that bound everyone together, neighbors, rescuers and Emma, holding baby Liam close as he babbled and pointed with unwavering focus. The first German shepherd's rescue had ignited a spark of hope, but the stakes were still dangerously high. The second dog had been uncovered just moments before, exhausted but alive. Now the focus shifted to the third, the smallest of the pack, trapped somewhere deeper and harder to reach. Emma's breath came in short, sharp bursts, her arms cradling Liam protectively. Despite the chaos, the baby remained calm, his bright eyes locked on the rubble where the faint sounds of whimpering persisted. "Almost there," one of the rescue volunteers muttered, wiping sweat from his brow. They carefully moved a jagged slab of concrete, revealing a narrow cavity below. A faint, desperate whimper escaped the gap, so fragile that it almost went unnoticed. Liam's small fingers clenched Emma's shirt as he babbled excitedly, "Baby. Dog, baby dog." The crowd leaned closer, hearts pounding. The rescuers worked with painstaking precision, chipping away the hardened cement piece by piece. Every small crack that appeared in the rubble felt like a lifeline. Suddenly a battered paw, thin, trembling and filthy, emerged from the shadows, followed by a fragile head shaking weakly as if trying to understand the world outside the darkness. Tears sprang to Emma's eyes. The tiny dog was the youngest, a fragile pup no larger than Liam himself. Its wide, terrified eyes met the baby's gaze. Liam's smile lit up the entire yard. "Hi, puppy," he giggled, reaching toward the little creature with a tenderness that seemed impossible from such a small child. The rescuers worked quickly, lifting the pup gently from its prison. It was clear the dog was weak, barely breathing but alive. A fragile miracle in the harshest of circumstances. Emma held Liam tighter as the pup was rushed to a waiting veterinary team who had arrived on site, ready with oxygen and medical supplies. The crowd watched in stunned silence, many wiping tears from their eyes. The sheer will to survive, both of the animals and the tiny boy who had discovered them, created an invisible thread of hope binding them all. Emma knelt beside Liam, brushing back his fine hair, whispering, "You found them, baby. You helped save them." Liam giggled again, clapping his hands, unaware of the full weight of the moment. To him, it was simply a game of discovery, but to everyone else, it was a story of courage, innocence, and life itself. As the dogs were carried away on blankets to the clinic for emergency care, Emma's phone buzzed with messages and calls from friends and neighbors, offering support and congratulations. The story was already spreading. The baby who had uncovered 3 German shepherds buried under cement rubble, but beneath the surface of celebration, a dark truth was beginning to emerge. Animal control officers arrived to investigate. The dogs were not victims of an accident. They had been deliberately buried, hidden beneath the rubble, after a violent eviction nearby. The harsh reality sent a chill through the community. Emma's mind raced as she cradled Liam. How could anyone hurt these innocent creatures? How could something so cruel exist in their peaceful neighborhood? Yet amidst the shock and sorrow, one thing remained clear. Liam's discovery had changed everything. What started as a quiet morning in a small backyard had blossomed into a powerful rescue mission, a beacon of hope for the 3 dogs fighting for their lives, and a community beginning to heal from the shadows of cruelty. The journey was far from over, but thanks to a baby's curiosity and heart, it had just begun. As evening fell over the neighborhood, a quiet unease settled among the gathered crowd. The rescue had been a miracle, yes, but the story behind the rubble was dark and unsettling. Animal control officers arrived with solemn expressions, their presence turning the atmosphere tense and serious. Emma sat on her porch, holding Liam close as the baby's laughter from earlier faded into a quiet curiosity. She glanced around. At the neighbors still lingering, whispers of disbelief and anger filling the air. The officers explained gently but firmly that the dogs were not victims of a tragic accident. Instead, they were victims of cruelty, deliberately buried alive, beneath the cement rubble after a violent eviction in a nearby property. The eviction had been messy, chaotic, and fraught with desperation, and someone had chosen to hide the animals away like unwanted secrets. Emma's heart ached for the 3 German shepherds, battered, scared, but alive, thanks to a baby's curious exploration. How had anyone been capable of such cruelty? The community's shock turned quickly to action. Local volunteers organized a neighborhood watch, determined to prevent any further harm. Donations for the dog's veterinary care poured in. Stories began to spread on social media, shining a spotlight on the injustice and rallying support. Yet, amidst the growing turmoil, Liam remained a source of light and hope. Emma noticed how the baby's presence seemed to calm the anxious dogs whenever she visited the veterinary clinic. His innocent giggles and gentle touches soothed even the most traumatized pup, bridging a silent connection no one could fully explain. The vet who treated the dogs marveled at this unique bond. "It's as if they recognize a protector in him," she said softly. "There's something healing in his spirit, Emma smiled through her tears. She had witnessed it herself. How the dog's trembling would ease the moment Liam was near. How their dark eyes would follow his every movement with trust and gratitude. Despite the horrors uncovered, the community found strength in this connection. Liam's small but fearless heart had lit a fire that no cruelty could extinguish. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Police investigations into the eviction intensified. Animal welfare groups worked tirelessly to provide foster homes and medical treatment. Local schools held fundraisers, and strangers reached out to Emma's family with offers of help. Through it all, Emma marveled at the resilience of her baby. At just 18 months old, Liam had unknowingly become a symbol of hope and compassion, a beacon in the face of darkness. One afternoon, as Emma rocked Liam gently in her arms, she whispered, "You saved those dogs, baby. You saved their lives." Liam smiled and babbled back, his tiny fingers brushing her cheek. The journey was far from over. The dogs had survived the unimaginable, but their healing would take time, physical and emotional. The community had found new purpose in protecting the vulnerable, inspired by a baby's innocent courage. And somewhere buried beneath layers of concrete and cruelty, 3 German shepherds had found their second chance, thanks to a toddler who never gave up. The days turned into weeks, and the 3 German shepherds slowly began their journey toward healing, a journey made possible by the tiny hero who had found them. The veterinary clinic became a second home, buzzing with activity as doctors and volunteers worked tirelessly to nurse the dogs back to health. Emma visited often, carrying Liam in her arms. Each time she entered the clinic, Liam's bright eyes would light up at the sight of the dogs, and the dogs' tails would wag weakly in return. It was a quiet, profound connection that deepened with every visit. The eldest dog, a strong, proud male named Max, was the first to show signs of recovery. His fur, once matted and dusty, began to regain its shine, and his eyes, though wary, held a spark of life. Max had been the leader of the pack, protective and loyal, and his gentle nudge toward Liam one afternoon was a small but powerful sign of trust. Then there was Luna, the female with soulful eyes that reflected both pain and hope. She had been the most frightened, trembling at loud noises and sudden movements, but Liam's soft coos and quiet laughter seemed to soothe her fears. Emma watched as Luna slowly inched closer to Liam during one visit, tentatively accepting his small hand resting on her head. The youngest pup, whom Emma had named Lucky, was the most fragile. At times his breathing was shallow, and the vet worried about his chances. Yet despite his weakness, Lucky's eyes would always brighten when Liam entered the room, as if recognizing the child's pure heart. The baby's presence was more than comforting. It was transformative. Emma often marveled at the miracle of it all. How had such a small child, with no understanding of cruelty or fear, sparked a chain reaction that saved lives and healed wounds? She knew that Liam's innocence and empathy had awakened something powerful, not just in the dogs but in the hearts of everyone around. The community's support never waned. Neighbors continued to visit the clinic, bringing toys, blankets, and supplies. Local children made colorful cards wishing the dogs well, their drawings a hopeful reminder of the kindness that could bloom even in the darkest times. Meanwhile, the police investigation into the eviction and animal cruelty deepened. Evidence gathered by neighbors, surveillance footage, and witness statements began to piece together the truth. The person responsible for burying the dogs was identified, and legal proceedings were set in motion. Emma felt a mixture of relief and sadness. Justice was coming, but the scars left behind could not be erased so easily. One afternoon, as the sun filtered softly through the clinic windows, Liam sat quietly next to Max, gently stroking the dog's fur. Max leaned into the touch, his eyes closing in contentment. Emma captured the moment on her phone, knowing it was a memory to cherish, a testament to the healing power of love, kindness, and unexpected heroes. That evening, back at home, Emma told Liam a simple story as she rocked him to sleep. "You helped the dogs, baby. You made a big difference." Liam smiled in his dreams, surrounded by the warmth of family and hope. the story of the baby who discovered 3 German shepherds buried beneath cement rubble was far from over, but with each passing day it grew brighter. A story of courage, compassion, and the unbreakable bond between a child and the animals he saved. The weeks following the rescue were a whirlwind of emotions, relief, hope, and an unwavering determination to protect the 3 German shepherds and prevent such cruelty from happening again. Emma's quiet neighborhood had transformed into a united community, fueled by the extraordinary story of a baby's discovery and the dog's fight for survival. At the veterinary clinic, the dog's progress continued steadily. Max, Luna, and Lucky had begun to regain their strength, their once weak limbs now sturdy enough for short walks around the clinic's fenced yard. The pup's fur grew thicker and shinier, and their eyes sparkled with newfound life. Emma made sure to bring Liam on every visit. Though still too young to understand words fully, Liam's presence was a balm for the dog's healing spirits. He would crawl or toddle around the yard, giggling and reaching out, his innocent laughter filling the air with warmth and comfort. One afternoon, as Emma sat with Liam on a bench, she noticed something remarkable. Max had slowly approached, nudging Liam's hand with his snout, a gesture of trust and affection. Luna followed, resting her head gently on Emma's lap. Even fragile Lucky, usually shy and hesitant, wagged his tail in recognition. Emma smiled. Through tears. The bond between baby and dogs was undeniable, a testament to the healing power of compassion. News of the rescue had spread far beyond the neighborhood. Local news stations featured the story, praising Liam's curiosity and the community's swift action. Social media buzzed with messages of support, donations poured in, and animal welfare organizations offered assistance for long-term care and adoption. But amidst the joy and gratitude, the investigation into the cruel act behind the dog's burial continued. Police interviewed witnesses, gathering more evidence to hold the responsible party accountable. The eviction had been messy and brutal, but the community's resolve was strong. They refused to let this dark chapter define their home. Emma often found herself reflecting on the strange twists of fate that had brought her baby and the dogs together. It was Liam's innocent exploration, his unfiltered empathy, that had uncovered the hidden horror beneath the rubble. Without him, the dogs might have never been found, left to perish in silence. As Liam's first birthday approached, Emma decided to hold a community gathering at her backyard, the very place where the rescue had begun. Neighbors brought food, children played, and volunteers shared stories of hope and renewal. Liam, now toddling confidently, explored the yard with his usual curiosity, stopping often to point at the flowers or wave to a friendly dog passing by. Emma looked around at the smiling faces, the laughter, and the growing sense of togetherness. It was a far cry from the fear and sorrow that had once overshadowed the neighborhood. A local reporter approached Emma, asking how it felt to be at the center of such a powerful story. Emma's eyes glistened as she answered softly, "It's incredible. But it's not just about me or Liam. It's about what can happen when a community comes together, when even the smallest among us shows courage and kindness. That baby taught us all a lesson about hope." As the sun set, casting a warm glow over the gathering, Emma held Liam close. The baby babbled happily, unaware of the full weight of the moment but radiating pure joy. The journey was far from over. The dogs still had recovery ahead, and justice had yet to be fully served. But one thing was clear: a tiny baby's quiet strength had changed the lives of 3 dogs and an entire community forever. The buzz around the community and media outlets continued to grow, shining a spotlight not only on the miracle rescue, but also on the serious consequences of the cruelty behind it. Emma and her neighbors watched closely as the police investigation into the eviction and the brutal act against the dogs moved forward. Court dates were set, and the man responsible for burying the 3 German shepherds beneath cement rubble was brought to trial. The evidence was overwhelming. Eyewitness testimonies, video footage, and the undeniable survival of the dogs all pointed to the defendant's guilt. Emma attended every hearing, often with Liam in her arms. She watched as the courtroom filled with neighbors and animal advocates, their faces a mix of sadness, anger, and hope for justice. For many, the trial was about more than punishment. It was a stand against cruelty, a declaration that no innocent life should ever be treated so mercilessly. As the trial progressed, emotional testimonies revealed the extent of the eviction's chaos, not just for the dogs, but for families and pets caught in the crossfire. The community's outrage grew, but so did their resolve to create change. Meanwhile, at the veterinary clinic, the dogs were showing remarkable progress. Max had regained much of his strength and confidence, often leading the pack during their daily outdoor play sessions. Luna, once the most fearful, now approached visitors with cautious curiosity, her tail wagging tentatively. Lucky, the smallest and most fragile, had gained weight and energy, his eyes bright with the promise of a full recovery. Emma felt a profound gratitude for the veterinary team, volunteers and neighbors who had come together to care for the dogs. But most of all, she marveled at the quiet strength of her baby, whose discovery had sparked this extraordinary rescue and the waves of kindness that followed. One sunny afternoon, Emma stood in her backyard, watching Liam play with a group of neighborhood children. The yard was alive with laughter, joy, and the playful barks of the 3 German shepherds, now safe and thriving. Emma knelt down beside Liam, who reached out to pet Max's head gently. She smiled and whispered, "You saved them, baby. You gave them a new beginning." The baby giggled, his eyes sparkling with innocence and joy. The community's journey was far from over, but healing was well underway. For the dogs, the people, and the neighborhood itself, plans were being made for permanent homes for the dogs, with several families expressing interest in adopting them. Emma knew it wouldn't be easy to say goodbye to the dogs who had become part of her family's story, but she also knew that these brave animals deserved a future filled with love and care. In the weeks following the trial, the community came together to create an animal protection initiative, a neighborhood group dedicated to preventing neglect and cruelty. Inspired by Liam's discovery, they aimed to educate others and ensure no animal would suffer in silence again. Emma felt hopeful as she watched the neighborhood transform, scars healing, trust rebuilding, and new bonds forming. It was a testament to the power of compassion, courage, and a baby's pure heart. As night fell, Emma held Liam close, whispering a promise to protect and nurture the love that had blossomed from tragedy. The story of the baby who found 3 German shepherds buried under cement rubble was no longer just a story of survival. It had become a symbol of hope, justice, and new beginnings. Months had passed since that fateful day when baby Liam's innocent curiosity uncovered the 3 German shepherds buried beneath cement rubble. What began as a quiet morning in a small backyard had transformed into a community-wide movement, a story of survival, justice, and unwavering hope. The 3 dogs, Max, Luna, and Lucky, had blossomed from fragile survivors into joyful companions. Max had become a strong and gentle leader, forever protective of those around him. Luna's once fearful eyes now sparkled with confidence, and Lucky, the tiny pup once barely clinging to life, was now lively and playful, filling the clinic with energy and joy. Each dog had found a permanent home thanks to the flood of support that had poured in. Max was adopted by a family who lived just a few blocks away, a family who had watched the rescue unfold from their front porch and wanted to be part of the healing. Luna found her forever family through a local rescue organization dedicated to giving second chances. Lucky, whose journey had been the most precarious, was adopted by a young couple who had fallen in love with his gentle spirit and resilience. Emma and Liam visited the dogs often, their bond unbroken despite the physical distance. Emma marveled at how her baby, now a curious toddler, had been the catalyst for such transformation. The neighborhood, once shaken by cruelty, was now thriving with kindness and community spirit. The Animal Protection Initiative, founded in Liam's honor, grew steadily, educating families on responsible pet ownership and vigilance against abuse. At a local ceremony to celebrate the initiative's first anniversary, Emma stood beside Liam, who clapped his hands gleefully, unaware of the significance of the event but radiant with joy. She spoke to the gathered crowd about the power of one small act, a baby's innocent exploration that saved lives and united a community. Sometimes the smallest voices have the biggest impact, Emma said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. Liam didn't set out to be a hero. He was just being a baby, curious, kind and brave. But because of him, these dogs have a future, and we have a reminder that compassion can change everything. Tears glistened in many eyes as the crowd applauded. The trial had concluded months earlier, with the perpetrator held accountable. But Emma knew the true victory was far greater. It was in the hearts of those who chose to stand up, to care, and to believe in second chances. Back home, Emma watched Liam play in the yard, his laughter echoing through the neighborhood. A sound of hope and life. She thought of the day he first discovered the dogs beneath the rubble and smiled. A baby's curiosity had revealed a hidden tragedy, but also the boundless capacity for love and healing. And that was the real miracle. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the quiet street. Emma whispered softly to Liam, "You saved them, baby. You changed everything." Liam's bright eyes met hers, filled with the innocent wonder of a child who had already done so much. The story of the baby who found 3 German shepherds buried beneath cement rubble was no longer just a tale of survival. It was a legacy, a testament to courage, kindness, and the power of hope. And for Liam, Max, Luna, and Lucky, it was only the beginning of a beautiful new life.